it's a big pause. I need to do something about that, don't I? It's a kind of Yogi Bear moment. Big pause there. And we will sort that out production-wise. And I will wish you a very good morning. Hola, bon dia, alegria from me, Carl Munson, here on the Good Morning Portugal show from expatsportugal.com. Moving to Portugal Thursday. Great guest for you. Has moved recently to the Algarve in Portugal from South Africa. That'll be Gareth McCumskey, who's joining us in just a moment. But let's say hello to a few people. And whilst I'm doing that, I have had a little bit of, it was described as constructive criticism on YouTube. I know I shouldn't take YouTube too seriously. It's a good job I stay off Twitter, really. But I have had a little bit of feedback from YouTube, which started, brace yourself if you don't like constructive criticism. And actually, Barbara does make it. So thank you, Barbara. You do make some good points, and it is a balance we're working on here. She tuned in on Monday for the very important business of preparing for fire situations in Portugal. Serious subject, and I wanted to cover it. But we know what happens here on the Good Morning Portugal show, don't we? Half an hour passes and we still haven't talked about the meat of the edition. Today, that's not going to be an issue. We're talking to Gareth in a few minutes, hopefully. Gareth won't tolerate being kept waiting for half an hour, I don't suppose. You can't do that to live guests, but you can do it to material, especially when we start talking like we're going to do now. And we say hello, good morning to Matthias. And we say hello to Jersey. Hola, bon dia, alegria, a todos de Coimbra. Folks are talking to each other in the comments, which we like. Hank Stalica sounds like he's back in California. Hank and Connie, what a journey you've had. Follow that, folks, in the expatsportugal.com/community forum. Miles and miles of forum content in there, in every sense, miles of text, miles that they've covered in Portugal, and they've told us all about it, which has been such a brilliant service to our community. Thank you so much, Hank and Connie. Looking forward to welcoming you back into the country soon. Bon dia, Stephen Wells. You see, this is how we roll. And what we're about at Expats Portugal and on the Good Morning Portugal show, of course, is a balance between community and knowledge. All right. And sorry to Barbara that it took too long to get to the knowledge bit and that we were just too busy having fun being a community. And I understand that's a problem for people. You see sometimes a bit of a clickbaity YouTube headline, subject line. And I am prone to that from time to time. And then you start watching these people on the Good Morning Portugal show, and they haven't talked about pastel de natas for 15 minutes and then 30 minutes. But what I did say to Barbara was, there is this very useful feature on YouTube, which is the little red button, the fast forward function, and you can watch it at 1.5 or 2 times speed, which will help you, Barbara, to be disappointed more quickly, if I can put it that way for you. And I did also say, and you this is, I think, really what upset my ego, and you did talk about my ego quite a lot, and there's no question that my ego is involved with this show. I do my best to wrestle with it every morning, as I'm sure you can see, sweat on my brow, wrestling with my own ego here. But she compared me to Mrs. M. You should be more like your wife. You should get her to MC the show more often. And that's when I saw the red mist and had to do my mindfulness breathing exercises. But I did say to Barbara, we are available on a more direct and exclusive consultancy basis. If the free YouTube show is not to your liking, Barbara, we should talk, and then you can have me to yourself on a Skype or something like that, and hire me in a consultancy basis. But there we go. We're trying to strike the balance between community and knowledge. Let's just say a couple more hellos before we go to the wonderful Gareth McCumskey. Good morning, everyone from Finland, from Elra, and Coimbra is liked a lot after a short walk at night. Yeah, beautiful at night up by the river there, isn't it, Jersey and Coimbra? Today we will explore further, and we're looking forward to meeting up in the Silver Coast as well. Lee McGrady, good morning, people, from another day in paradise. There we go. That's how we roll here. And let's see who. Oh, so many comments. You see, this is the problem. It's a problem on the one hand, and I love it on the other. Hola, bon dia from Garvo. Garvo's here. Veggieholics are here as well. Bon dia. You're giving us serious FOMO. Oh, sorry about that. That should come. We should have a FOMO warning on the show. Can't wait to get there. Ex-South Africa, currently in rainy Netherlands, where we make better plans. Okay, that's a great point to introduce my guest for this morning, Mr. Gareth McCumskey, live from the Algarve. How are you, sir?
I'm great yourself. Good morning. Thanks, Carl.
Good to have you here. And sorry, we only kept you waiting 6 minutes there. It is a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah, not bad.
We're a community show, and we love to get the knowledge in. And that's why you're here this morning on Move to Portugal Thursday. We try and feature somebody or a family that's moved to Portugal recently, so we get your first-hand testimony of what it's like to be here. May I assume that you're quite happy here in your new place in Portugal only after a couple of months?
Yeah, pretty much. Our stay in the last couple of months has been a little bit eventful, and I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more detail on that. But we've seen actually quite a bit of the country already, which has been quite interesting. mostly because we've had to, for the last couple of months, live in Airbnbs until we were able to find a sort of long-term rental that we were happy with.
Yes.
So we've been out in the Alentejo at one point where it was a bit cheaper because the Algarve in tourist season is apparently really expensive. Who knew?
Oh, yeah. Oh yes. Even in the pandemic time, it's packed at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Where did this journey begin then? Obviously South Africa, but what prompted you to pick Portugal?
Yeah, well, that's a question I get a lot because a lot of South Africans tend to be flying off to the UK and Australia and even the Northern European countries a lot of the time. I've even seen in the comments somebody's in the Netherlands right now.
Yeah.
So for us, really, what it boiled down to was my wife and I, who's a bit camera shy. That's why she's not here.
Good morning, sir.
She's probably watching right now. We decided to consider the idea of moving overseas. And I was in the position at that point, I had a job that allowed me to be remote, which was great. And the company, when I said to them, if we decided to go somewhere, would that be a problem? And they were kind of like, nope, as long as you have internet access and can do your job, we don't really care. So that was great.
Yeah.
And we were also in a lucky position that my wife and my in-laws have Italian passports. So that kind of opened up all of Europe for us. So we knew Europe was our destination. And instantly my wife made the suggestion that she'd be desperately unhappy anywhere that was colder than South Africa. So that cut out a lot of Europe already.
Yes. Not England then.
Right. No, definitely not. Ireland was considered briefly, and then we decided against it.
Yeah.
And then ultimately from there, it was pretty much just doing research. And on paper, when you look at the Southern European countries, Portugal looks like a great place to live.
Yes.
And we culminated that bit of research with the visit just before COVID struck, February 2020. Literally, we arrived home from our visit and they shut down the country. But from our brief visit, we realized that Portugal's a great place. So
yeah. Oh, that's good. So you did your exploratory, and then that was it. Was it? We're definitely going to Portugal.
Yeah. The idea was at that time was that September 2020 we wanted to be here. We did not expect a global pandemic at the scale of the Spanish flu to strike. So that kind of delayed things a touch. And we delayed basically about just short of a year. And here we are.
Incredible. And what a stroke of luck that you work for a company that is so progressive, because it's not every company. You know, I'm sure there are other people watching thinking, I'm going to go into my office today and I'm going to say, is it all right for me to do this in Portugal? Say, no. This is Tesco's. We can't possibly do that.
You can't pack bags in Portugal.
Yeah. So you obviously did some checks while you were here on the internet, and it's a big issue for people. Obviously, And I would like to think, and on the face of it, fiber, broadband, Wi-Fi is all very good in Portugal. Is that your experience? And you obviously did your due diligence and tests while you were here, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of very similar to a lot of other countries. If you go for the more urbanized areas, you're going to find fantastic internet access. I mean, here right now, well, I was telling you when we got on this morning, I was fighting with my ISP due to a couple of issues. But, in general, the internet is generally fantastic in the more urbanized areas. But out in the country where we were staying in the Alentejo, it was a little touch and go for a while. So you do have to do your research. Wherever you want to live, you've got to make sure that you've got what you need.
Yeah, so ask a neighbor, right? Ask somebody who lives there what their experience is, and also maybe ask them what it's like. I know our very own Jerry here, I think, might have some problems at the moment in school holidays. All the kids jump onto Netflix or gaming or whatever they do, online gaming after dinner or something like that, or before dinner, and the whole thing goes down in the village because of the usage. So be careful with that. Be careful with that. Check with the neighbor. And there are apps and so on for that sort of thing. But that's fantastic. You're able to do your job remotely. That'll be the envy of many people. And you did your exploratory trip, which is great. Anything else at that sort of level of things that people should know about when they're making this epic adventure and change in life?
Wow, there's so much. One thing I would suggest anybody do. I mean, luckily, well, it's kind of a catch-22. The global pandemic has pushed the working world much more towards remote work. There's far more opportunities these days to find remote work than ever before. So while global pandemic isn't a lot of fun, it has changed a lot of the working world for the better, for in general. So if you are able to find, if you're in a position now where you have to go into an office and commute to a physical location, and you do want to make a move overseas, the easiest way to do that is to find remote work if possible, because that just opens up everything for you. Otherwise, most folks end up, especially in South Africa, I've had some friends of ours move overseas, and their route has essentially been find a job, roughly where you want to live, apply and hope to get it, and then that'll give you the way to get there. Yeah. Unfortunately, the South African passport doesn't open doors very much for immigration. So you tend to either need to go through the work visa. The reason why getting a remote job is great for Portugal, though, is that even with the South African passport, you can actually immigrate to Portugal on a remote job like that, because I'm sure you've had talks about it on the D7 visa, which is a fantastic way to get into Portugal if you have remote work.
Yeah, and there's a tech visa as well, isn't there? So this is if at all possible, if your work is or can be adapted to remote working, that works very well for you. But not an issue for you by the sound of it, because you used the Italian roots in the family to come through on an EU passport and take advantage of the incredible Schengen agreement. So you have free movement to Portugal and around the rest of Europe, apart from Britain now.
Yeah, that was originally when we were looking at Britain, we saw the Brexit issues looming on the horizon, and we realized even if we were able to get in, it would limit us, and we would have issues on the Italian passport. So we decided just to kind of drop that at that point. Yeah. I actually have my parents are living in the UK at the moment. Yeah. But the advantage of using the Italian passport is it's not necessarily, it doesn't instantly give me full access to Portugal and everything, but what it does is allow me to do family reunification, they call it. Yeah, so because my wife and children are Italian and living in Portugal, I can just rejoin them as family reunification, which is pretty nice. It's a much easier route than the D7, I've been told. So we're going that route.
What a lovely lineage as well. The whole mix there of Portugal and Italy and South. What a global group you are. How lovely. I do want to talk to you about the Antasia before we just sort of consign that to a far corner of the conversation, because, with the Algarve, and we'll talk about this as well. I'm sure people will ask you the question in the comments, but the balance of being in the Algarve and not being in perhaps too much of a touristy area, because there are very remote parts of the Algarve that get overlooked. And it's all a matter of what you need as a group or as an individual or as a family, obviously, and getting the balance right. So we're very keen to know why you chose Anil Mansell, but we'll come back to that after we said hello to a few more people. Andy Gilchrist is here, the man cave man himself. Portuglish, aka Portuglish. Good morning to you, Andy. Jim White from Baltimore. Bom dia, todos. Incredible attendance record, even at this unearthly, ungodly hour for you, Jim. Do appreciate it. And Hank, much the same in California. Serious constructive criticism is an opportunity for improvement. Absolutely right, Hank. I do take it seriously. I do. It's a funny thing. It's just human nature, isn't it? You get some nice feedback, and then it's the one sort of bad review, as it were, that your mind tends to go towards as you're sort of poring over it, like, poor me. But you're absolutely right, Hank. It is a great opportunity to look at what people are saying, and I hope I've done that. Bon dia, Andrew from Matthias over there in Amsterdam, of course. Anna Olsen is here. Hello, Anna. Bon dia. Only a few weeks now until I arrive in the Algarve. So you need to get maybe a cold beer ready for Anna there, if you don't mind, Gareth. Morning from San Martino. We have sold houses to loads of South Africans. Yeah, and you're part of a phenomenon, if you don't mind me saying so, Gareth. There are more and more South Africans, I think, coming to Portugal. The very large majority have settled beautifully and are enjoying their new lives here in Portugal. Parallels, I think, between quality of life here, but perhaps a little bit safer now than South Africa. Hola, bon dia, people. Celebrating a milestone, visa application sent. Well done, Victoria. We like to celebrate each of these milestones for everybody here. So do tell us what's going on for you in your process of coming to Portugal. There, Victoria, celebrating the visa application has been submitted. Fingers crossed, por sorte. What was it you expected? Not sure there. Bon dia from a currently overcast Povoa de Vargem. The weather report from the more northerly part of the coast of Portugal, the Green Coast, waiting for the sun to poke through, as I'm sure it will. Keep up the good work, Carl. Thank you. That's what I need. Cheers, Hank. Bon dia, todos. Hope everyone is well today. Certainly. I think Gareth and I are pretty well, aren't we, Gareth?
Yeah, doing pretty good today.
Doing pretty good today. Mark in Norfolk in the UK, bon dia todos as well. Veggieholics are not the other folks. I think we're going to have a Portuguese convention of YouTubers at some point. What a fun that'll be. And who will make the video of that, I wonder. Jersey, first cloudy day in Coimbra for us. It'll clear up. I hope it does. Although, it's still a very charming town. And if you are wandering about up on the top there near the university, you might be glad of a little bit of cloud cover rather than roasting heat. It has surpassed all expectations. Here we go. So Hank, on the 30-day journey that has included 10 destinations in Portugal, it has surpassed officially here all expectations. Better than I expected, says Hank. That's fantastic. Jim White, also a milestone to celebrate. A meeting this morning with Gilda's team on D7 submission and a meeting next week in DC. That's great news as well. Can you do edits and repost the actual morning content as a new video? Yeah, that's what I will do, certainly with the Fire one, and I intended to do that. Great idea, Stephen. But you know what? Only so much time in the day as well. That's the other challenge, isn't it? So many. I'd love to do that, and I'd love to be a proper YouTuber with all the chapters and all the bits and pieces you're supposed to do. But like me and Gareth here, we got family, so the days can be quite busy. So Gareth, back to you. The Alentejo, you decided not to stay in the Alentejo. Could you tell us why? I mean, it is beautiful in the Alentejo, isn't it? If you're a South African from quite a remote part of South Africa, there might be some lovely parallels there that would appeal to you.
The Alentejo is absolutely beautiful. We did love our stay there. The downside for us, unfortunately, is that we do have children, and they do need to go to school. And we wanted to. We were looking at a number of schools around the country, and we ended up really liking one of the schools in the Algarve. And because we're flexible enough, if we'd liked the school in Porto, we could have gone there. If we liked the school in Lisbon, we could have tried to stay there instead. So really, our only geographical limitation was the school we wanted our children to go to. And that was fine by us. That was great. We wanted to make sure we could do what we felt was best for them. Otherwise, the Alentejo is absolutely beautiful. If you're single or a couple or anything like that, and you don't have any of that sort of geographical limitation, I would highly recommend looking at places like the Alentejo, central Portugal, anywhere in the country, really. And it's so hard to choose. And that's what we found the most difficult. We did that little 1-week trip from north to south. We landed in Lisbon, drove to Porto, down to the Algarve, flew home, and we kind of sat for 3 weeks wondering what the hell we were going to do. And ended up choosing the Algarve in the end. But yeah.
It's an absolute thing here that, you are spoiled with choice. And I think I said this only yesterday, on the morning show. It's quite good, actually, to have an immutable factor in there that helps you tie it down a bit. And obviously yours is the school situation. Are you able to do a quick school review for us? And because this is an issue for some people. I don't know. You don't have to put yourself on the line with 5 stars or anything like that for each of them. But just in terms of where the international, they are international schools you're talking about, right? So where are they around Portugal for those that need to know about this sort of stuff?
Okay, so it's a little difficult. Lisbon and, funny enough, the Algarve have the vast majority of the international schools. So that's partly what limited our decision. Porto is probably next on the list. I think there's about 3 or 4 around the Porto area. And there's one in Braga that we went and looked at as well. And Braga is absolutely stunning. So it really depends. I mean, my wife loved the weather in the Algarve. The international schools in the Algarve are pretty good. There's quite a few good ones. So that's ultimately what made our decision, was a good school for the children and the type of climate and weather that we tend to like. But yeah, it is a difficult one. I would suggest anybody actually take the time to go see the schools themselves. They are more than willing to often take parents on a tour of the premises and let them have a look around and look at the facilities, even speak to some of the teachers if you wish. And you should really do that if you want to, sign up to a school, because the last thing we want is to put our kids in and then have to yank them out if we don't like a place.
Yeah. And have they settled in well?
Yeah, so far. I mean, my daughter's only going to start school in September now, which is a change.
Yes, we're into the holidays already. How brilliant is that when you're a kid? You're about to start a new school and the summer holidays come up straight away. Fantastic.
What's even crazier is that the way we left beginning of June, which means my daughter has had holidays since June and now July and August. So I think she's had a really long vacation.
Good for her.
But for fellow South Africans, that's one thing to get used to, is the school year in South Africa starts in January, not in September.
Oh.
But, it's just think about summer. Just think school starts in summer, and that's the way to think of it.
All right. Well, that's a good avenue to examine. The comparisons you're making there for South Africans and changing similarities. What else? What else is there that has either delighted or surprised you from that point of view of making the move from South Africa to Portugal?
Well, the one big change that stood out to us, and we should have realized this earlier, but and it's going to sound maybe bizarre to some folks, but the handling of garbage collection from your house. Whereas, maybe you've experienced this, Carl, when you moved into Portugal.
Yeah.
But the difference is in South Africa, and I'm sure other countries in the world as well, has curbside pickup outside your house, where you roll your garbage out in a bin, in a black bin, and the truck comes by, dumps it in the back, goes to the house next door, and continues down the road. Whereas in Portugal, they've economized it for the garbage collectors, not the households. So there's a local dumpster that you, as a resident of your home, have to walk up the street or use your car to get to drop your garbage into the where it's collected. Which it's not a big deal. It's just a change to be aware of that you might not be used to.
Well, I've got to ask you. I mean, which do you prefer?
I prefer curbside pickup.
Do you? Because this is a serious sociological issue, isn't it? That men are often defined by their ability to remember bin day and to take the bin down, aren't they? So is that why you like it? Because you get a chance to prove yourself every week that you're on it?
Well, I actually just prefer it because it's just down the driveway is a lot less of a distance than up the road every day, you know. So.
All right, yeah. Well, I think I've been lucky enough, and don't take this the wrong way, anybody. I've been lucky enough to live near quite a few dumpsters, which probably says something more about our relative qualities of life, Gareth, than anything else.
That's what my wife has said, though. My wife has said, you know, when we buy a house, it's going to be right next to the dumpster because we don't want to be too far away. I
mean, the amazing thing about it, and to dwell on this for a moment, in the UK, it is exactly the same as you describe or very similar anyway to South Africa. You know, you have, well, you used to have the one metal dustbin. This is a little trip down memory lane for some people. So it's often the strongest person in the house's job to drag that down the garden path to the end. Actually, no, in those days, they probably came and got it for you. And it's changed. It's gone from one metal bin that might have still had hot ashes in it, that understandably dustbin men didn't really like to pick up, to 2 bins, then 3, and now fines for putting the wrong bin out on the wrong day. It's become a nightmare in the curbside collection civilizations. And I find the Portuguese system so much better. You could pretty much chuck anything you like with any sort of sense of difficulty or anxiety in the green or silver dumpster. And if you are ecologically or recycling minded, you can just about find a receptacle for any particular thing you would want to get rid of, ranging from, you know, cooking oil to batteries to, you know, your usual suspects of cardboard, metal, and so on. And also your bottles, taking your bottles down there, the trip of shame with all your wine bottles down to the recycling there.
Speaking of recycling, that's another thing. In South Africa, there isn't really any official recycling program. So arriving here and having an Airbnb host explain to us that, no, you've got recycling bins, and us scratching our heads wondering what this was. She ended up sending us a YouTube video, I think, that was designed for children to teach them how to recycle. So that...
And now you're up to...
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Now I have to make the trek every couple of days up to the local recycling bins to dump my plastic, paper, and glass as well. So yeah.
And you can have the thought there, can't you? I'm actually working for the government now. But anyway, I've got 2 jobs. So Al Mansil, you obviously love the Alentejo, as everybody does who goes there. It might not be quite right, especially, you know, if you've got kids to take to school and so on, and you don't want a 2-hour round trip every morning and every evening. So you move closer to the Algarve. Mrs. McCumskey loves it in the Algarve. Why Al Mansil particularly? Can you tell us about that particular? Is it called a city or a town?
I think pretty much it's all towns here. Right. That's the one thing as well. There's another difference to get used to with South Africa. Generally in South Africa, the population is a bit larger. So you have cities like Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban with millions of people in them. Yeah. Whereas generally in Portugal, the only towns that might get close to that kind of mark is Lisbon and Porto.
Sure.
Algarve is very spread out. So everywhere is basically a town. Even Faro, which is the biggest town in the Algarve, isn't massive by that kind of metropole scale. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That's just how it is here. And the reason why we have Al Mansil at the moment isn't It's an area that we like, but it's not necessarily where we're going to be settling full time. Right now, we're renting for a year while we continue to find a property that we want to purchase and so on. But that's the one tricky bit, is finding long-term rental accommodation in the Algarve is actually very, very difficult to do. We struggled for quite a while. We had a very narrow area near Lulay, which is near where my daughter's school is. Lulay is beautiful.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. But the rental prospects there are very, very limited in the Algarve in general, because most rental accommodation is for tourism, which makes sense. I mean, I would do that if I was a landlord. Yes. But ultimately, you can find things if you do spend the time to look properly. I see everybody typing out the name Lulay.
I need to do that, because often we'll get a comment later on. It's like, what was that place he mentioned? And it's very useful to spell it correctly so people can locate it. But it's such a lovely town, isn't it? The market there in the center of town, absolutely loved it. And a very good dentist in Lulay as well. Reinhardt, the biological dentist.
I will remember that name.
Reinhardt, of course. He's German, in case you didn't know. So yes, Al-Mansil. For now, then, and it seems to me you are doing it absolutely textbook, which is fantastic. Your exploratory trip, go to as many places as you can. Then when you come, rent to get a sense, as you're homing in on the right kind of area, renting for a while, and then looking for some sort of lucky break or, the result of extensive research, whichever way you look at it, to find the forever home a little while in the future. Is that right?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, we're kind of deciding how we want to go ahead with sort of a property investment for the future. In the last week, we've gone to see about 6 different places. We're going to one right after this, after we finish talking here. We're off to go take another look at somewhere else. So yeah, it's really just about exposing yourself to as much as you can so that you can kind of learn, where the good areas is. But there's another thing, another difference to bring up, I guess, between Portugal and South Africa is you mentioned the safety, and that was probably the primary factor that led us here. And that doesn't just mean that you can walk around at night and feel safe. It also means you can live almost anywhere and not fear for your safety. Yeah. There are very few places in Portugal that you might buy property in or live in and feel like you've made a bad decision because you're not safe there. It's bizarre because you do have that dichotomy in South Africa. You do need to be more careful. So yes, it's a very interesting, very, very freeing to be able to pretty much live anywhere you like.
Yeah, wonderful. And so can I ask what other suspects you have on your list then? Al-Mansil at the moment, Lulay, obviously you love. What else are you looking at in the Algarve? This is useful for the school, and it sounds like you're happy to be in a fairly sort of urban environment. You're not looking for the hills exactly. Maybe you don't want to inflict that on your kids. What other names are coming up in this search? Because this is really useful stuff to people.
Well, what has come up in the past is we looked all across the breadth of the Algarve when we decided this was the region we wanted. So we actually looked at the west coast near Al Jazur, which is very beautiful there as well. Monchique came up as well.
Yeah.
But the international schools there are a little bit far away from those locations. So we kind of looked at them. Could we manage driving for 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back every morning? Yeah. It's a tough one. Beautiful, though. Living in Monchique would be a stunning place to live.
Yeah.
If anybody doesn't have that kind of the limitation that we've got, I would heavily recommend that region of the Algarve. It's more northern, so you're not right down by the coast where all the tourists are, where it's all full of people on the beach, which is pretty nice.
As you go up from the Algarve to the Alentejo on that coast, though, it's stunning, isn't it? And I noticed there's quite a big German expat community. German and Dutch seem to like it along there as well.
Yeah, and there's actually, if you come up further south, there's I can't remember what it's called now. There's a huge English expat community as well, sort of on the southwest corner of the Algarve as well.
Yeah. So there's something to avoid. Okay. A few more comments. Bondi had a friend from UK, decided to jump in, live in the car campsites, and currently heading through France, but freaked out by the authoritarianism going on. It's quite something going on in France at the moment, isn't there? The president's getting his house pebble dashed with a nice organic finish currently. Please checking your status outside cafes and even in campsites. Wow, that doesn't sound like much fun. Coming to a regime near you without action. Incredible, Will. The word from France this morning. Oh, yeah, okay, a great moment here. Parabéns à você to son Dale from Gary and from me as well and the whole community here. Happy 28th birthday to Dale, a.k.a. Bigfoot. Has been found in the UK. Bigfoot spotted and celebrated his birthday today. Have a good one, Dale. Okay, let's see who else is here. Yes, birthday greetings going to you from Will as well. I'm the face of the best community on the internet. Keep it up, Carl. Thanks, Hank. And it's not possible without the wonderful community of people here, of which you're an integral part, you and Connie, of course. And here we go. Everybody saying hello to everybody else in the comments, which makes my job quite difficult, but I love to see it. And no stroking. I need a sign for that, though. It's like a bit of the zoo. Don't feed the animals, and please no stroking of the presenter's ego. Unless we maybe could set up a weekend workshop for that sort of thing, but not here. Not in the mornings. From an American expat in Provence, France. A couple of mentions of France this morning. Not a nicer side of France, there, isn't it? The movie with Russell Crowe. Was that him? It wasn't A Year in Provence. It was where he inherited his uncle's place in France and became a very different man, which is a lovely storyline and the sort of thing that happens to people coming to Portugal. I think there's a parallel there. What else have we got here? Oh, yes, Matthias, responding to your comment, Gareth, about the meeting with HR in the company. There is a meeting planned with my company's McC, Chief Operating Officer and HR, to discuss the option to keep working from Portugal. Fingers crossed. An amazing world we live in where that's possible. Absolutely brilliant. Good luck with that one. Donna, good morning to you. Bon dia all, going to the Algarve for the first time next month. Anxious to hear more about it. Well, specifically, tell us what you want to know. Please, Donna, and Gareth can tell you all about it, as can Paul, who apparently, word has it, he quite likes the Algarve as well. Greetings from Harrogate, looking for a happy show this morning. It was a bit doom and gloom yesterday, wasn't it? But I think it ended okay. Good morning from a cool and windy Tamar this morning. Good morning to you, Maria. Great to hear from you. Gareth, question from Colin. Hey, Colin, see you this evening, I'm sure. Did you embark on family reunification already? If so, how long is it taking? And did you use an agent or did you go DIY on that? If you're happy to share such details, Gareth.
Yeah, more than happy. So it's tricky. The emigration to a new country is taxing and difficult in the best of times, and we're in the middle of a global pandemic, so that makes it even worse. And the issue we've got is, well, we decided to go with the route of using a lawyer just to help us get through there, because there are requirements and documents and papers and so on that are needed. It's so much easier to get somebody who knows what they're doing to get involved to some degree. But the problem we've got is that because of COVID going up and down in Portugal at the moment quite a bit, in order for me to get my family reunification, my family needs to be resident. They need to get their resident status, which means they need to go to the Camara in Lulé for their interview. And that is done by appointment now, whereas before you could just kind of walk in whenever you wanted and do it. And the appointment is in September. So things are a bit delayed in that way. We thought we might have had it already. We probably would have if it hadn't been for COVID. So we're just waiting right now. Pretty much the lawyers have told me there's no problem with that. As long as I can show that I'm married to my wife, and my wife obviously has an Italian passport. Family reunification is the simplest way to go if you want to get into the country and you're married to an EU citizen.
That would be helpful. So if we could just backtrack on the technicalities there. The EU passport holders of the household need to declare themselves as residents in Portugal, first step, right? And that's done with it. Go on.
One step back, you actually need permanent residence. So getting this rental property for a year was the first requirement, because you can't say you're resident if you're in an Airbnb for a month. So that was really the first step. And then, as you said, the European members of the household have to go and declare residency and get resident status in Portugal, and then you can reunify to them. Because ultimately, being part of the EU, you can just live in Portugal. You don't need any special application as an Italian citizen. It's the other people in the house that need the family reunification.
Yeah, and this is they need to do that if they intend to stay for more than 90 days anyway, don't they? If you're coming to Portugal as an EU resident, so that's been delayed, that particular step, obviously, because they can't get in to do it. But then once they have done that, technically speaking, that makes you the outsider and you have to be brought into the European bosom, don't you, at that point?
Yep.
Because they will have become Portuguese residents, and they will have a 5-year license for that. But then you're the odd one out, aren't you, as the South African resident? But they can claim you and bring you on the family reunification basis. What have you been told about that then, Gareth, in terms of the process for that and how long it might take?
So the process there is up in the air. It can take a couple of weeks. It can take a few months. It's all about CEF having the capacity to process it, and they're backlogged, which the Portuguese consulates around the world know, including the ones in South Africa. So the other side of it is, if you are South African looking to come to Portugal, you can only come here on what's the phrase? You can't come here as a tourist. You have to. It's limited travel. Okay. So we went to the consulate and we told them we want to go to Portugal, and they essentially told us, no, you can't, because it's only for limited travel. And we said, no, we plan on immigrating. This isn't just a visit. They said, in that case, let's apply for your visa. They gave me a visa which lasts a year. Yeah. So I don't have that, thankfully, that 90-day limitation. They told me we're specifically giving you a year because of the virus, and we know CEF is backlogged. Good, so this will give you access for a year. And they said, ultimately, you can go and get things extended if you need to as well. But once you apply in CEF, that's the other advantage, is once your application is in at CEF, your visa can expire. It doesn't matter. You have an appointment. You are now legally allowed to stay in the country until your CEF appointment occurs for your visa. So
that's really good to know. Yeah, that's great, Gareth. And that will come, as I'm sure, as a comfort. And obviously, different consulates, different international relationships between the countries can mean different things and different interpretations. But that's a really good principle to know about. And from what we're gleaning there, it's still backed up and will be for some time, right? But you're legal, you have been told so, and you're waiting for your appointment. So it's kind of on CEF to get back to you now with the availability, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Once we've got the resident status done for the family, the lawyers will then apply for my appointment at CEF. They're pretty much handling all of that. They'll submit all the right documentation and so on that they need to, and then I'll have an appointment with CEF that I need to attend at some point in the future.
Right, and so that's the last part of Colin's question there. Obviously, you went an agent with a law firm, and that's brought you some peace of mind rather than attempting to do that yourself.
You could do it yourself, but it's a lot of work. And if you miss something, you can backlog yourself worse. And sorry for the noise.
Don't you worry. No, absolutely no problem at all. This is one family home to another this morning. Anything could happen, basically, couldn't it? As you try and maneuver children out of the room with your feet whilst keeping a straight face on camera. I know this environment well. SP, go on, sorry, mate.
I was going to mention, there's something interesting as well to mention about immigrating from South Africa to Portugal at the moment is our house is pretty much empty at the moment. We've gotten our landlord was nice enough to loan us a little bit of furniture because our goods are still being shipped from South Africa, and we can't do that until we have resident status. My wife gets residency status in September, and the shipment takes about 6 weeks. So we're looking at November to get all our goodies from South Africa. So.
And when you say you can't do that, I mean, you could technically do it, but you would face a lot of import fees and barriers, wouldn't you? Okay.
Yes, it'll get very expensive.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another important point for people. Wait for your residency before you start importing things, because you'll be importing them as a resident with an entirely different set of criteria to that. I mean, basically, you'd just be like a business, wouldn't you? Bringing stuff in, which would be subject to all sorts of possible tariffs and bans, and certainly some money levied upon it to bring it into the country.
And that is a whole story on its own as well. Even if you're a resident and you're bringing your household goods from South Africa, they need to be older than 6 months. Otherwise, you may face import duties because now you're trying to bring new goods into the country. It's crazy. All the bureaucracy.
But this certainly that's another great nugget of information, because that's going to save some heartache, isn't it, later on? Do not be claiming that those 12 iMacs that you're bringing in the container are what you use personally and have had for a year if they're still in their boxes. And you can understand that, can't you? You can understand why the government takes this view that it's not someone bringing in a load of moody imports so that they could just flog them off afterwards. The 6-month threshold is to demonstrate that it's actually your stuff, right, rather than you bringing in stuff to flog here. But it can be very annoying because you might have bought stuff in less than 6 months ago, right, to bring it to the country. Yeah,
and we've the movers actually said as much. They said folks have desperately tried to consume every inch of space in their container, and they go out shopping. Yes, when it's actually a really bad idea.
It is a bad idea, because as soon as that container's opened up in Lisbon or wherever it comes in, It smells of new stuff and looks like new stuff in there, which would alert the suspicions, I'm sure, of the authorities. SP says on YouTube, I'd love to know more about Aussies and Kiwis coming over. I am one of them. Well, good morning to you, or possibly good evening to you if you're tuned in from over in the Antipodes. And this is a community, and the door is open to anyone from the Aussie or Kiwi community who'd like to talk about their journey, just as Gareth is doing this morning. And I've got you. There's a space between the Mac and the Kumsky there, and I'm thinking for a moment, you're on the side. You're possibly a rapper, Gareth McC Kumsky. But I think is that just to make the name easier to pronounce, Gareth? I think there.
No, that is actually the spelling. It is an Irish name, so
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like MAC as the Scots have, but MC as the Irish do instead. But
watch out for him in the Algarve. Some gigs coming up. MC Kumsky in the house. All right. So our very own Astrid, of course, SP is an Australian who is now in Portugal. You might reach out to Astrid in our forum. But yeah, the door is open for any Aussie or Kiwi who wants to come on and talk, just in the way that Gareth is doing, about your particular experience from your particular country. Andrea's here again this morning. Good morning to you, Andrea. Hola, bon dia, alegria to you. And look at this, the community meeting up with Frank and Rachel this evening for dinner and drinks in Portimao. Gareth, may I commend my dear friend Frank to you for a beer sometimes, if you fancy getting out and about. Frank is an excellent companion on such shenanigans. Portugal feels very much like South Africa in many ways, says Say Veggieholics. With our first trip, we already felt at home. Would you like to add to that, Gareth?
Yeah, we remarked on that many, many times, especially in the Alentejo, when we were just driving down the roads, looking out, and we were like, we're in a different country, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like we're back in South Africa because the climate and the vegetation seems very familiar and very similar. It's obviously different, but there is a lot of similarity.
There you go. Good choice, Gareth, from Paul Richards, a fellow Algarvian, Algarvophile, if I may refer to you both like that. How fun to meet up with Frank and Rachel. I think Frank and Rachel are going to be in demand increasingly down there in Portimao with their Airbnb. Pippa Young, hello, Pippa. Good morning from Botswana, and hello to Gareth from our neighbouring country. So African shout out there. I have visited, Hakan says, Hakan's Life and Travels, another YouTuber. I visited Lisbon, Algarve, Moscovida, Faro, Porto, Vilamora, Albufeira, Alvor for 25 days in 2020. Another one of those brilliant itineraries. I liked it there very much. The ocean was hot even in October. That's the Atlantic we're talking about there. The rubbish. Thank you, Hakan. And I think you do want to come here as a result of that. We'll find out more from you a little bit later on, I think, in the comments. The rubbish thing is so true. I should say that's what English people call garbage or trash, rubbish. Having to put the rubbish in the car boot and drive up to the dumpster is annoying. Oh, such a first world problem, Michael Herod. Get over yourself, honestly. I can say that to him. We're mates. Bon dia, yes, the non-curb pickup of garbage was one of the first things I loved, says Khadija. So much better. Get to meet your neighbours, don't you? And also the rubbish, garbage, trash, pixie thing. If you've got something that you don't want anymore, that you don't want to throw away, leave it by the side of the dumpster and it will get a new home, I promise you. And you might even find a cheeky thing yourself from time to time that you might pick up and bring back to your wife. Look what I found at the dumpster. Get that out of here. Whenever I find a decent woman to marry. Okay, I wonder if we can help with that. Maybe pop that on the forum, expatsportugal.com/community. Hakan, good luck with the search. And then the car, he's still moaning about this. The car smells. Yeah, that's because of all the wine bottles, Michael. You need to rinse them out. Rinse out, it's a little tip, domestic tip for you. Rinse out the beer and wine bottles and they won't spill on the back seat. And the kids get in and go, oh, Daddy, this smells like you on a Sunday morning. Jacqueline Branco, good morning, interesting morning show. Unable to stay and listen, have a good day. Morning, out and about doing good work, so I'm sure. Hakan, I will immediately come and become a Portugal citizen and never leave Portugal and Spain. I'm very encouraged, actually, Gareth, by the process and how, despite the pandemic curveball, you're sitting it out and waiting for Seth to get back to you. And that's not an unpleasant process here in the Algarve, is it?
No, I mean, there's no limitation on my travel at the moment. I've got a European visa for a year, so it's not as if I have to just sit on my hands and never go anywhere. There's no downside at the moment, except that it's just going to take a while.
Okay, and we're better way.
The only downside is it does delay things like, because I'm hoping to sign up for NHR, which is a tax regime here in Portugal, which is another really good reason we decided to come here. So if you do earn money remotely from another country, You can use the NHR regime to pay only about 20% tax, which is fantastic. At least for 10 years. For 10 years, there is a limit, but
it's not bad though, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
10 years of that regime, if you get that right and you do it early enough, a lot of people do get caught out. They don't pay attention and they miss the deadline. So you've got to be on top of that and maybe have a professional representing and reminding you about that. Gareth, did you want to say more about that?
In general, what's useful, what I found with the bureaucracy in Portugal, everyone warned us it was going to be horrific, but there has been an element of that, but it's also been an element on the other side where folks in Portugal understand that things are slow, delayed, backlogged for reasons. So if you end up in a situation where you haven't quite met the deadline that you need to, they end up understanding and being okay with it and continuing the process because things are not normal at the moment. So it's not as if missing that NHR deadline is going to completely hamstring you entirely. You can still find ways to, get around things.
This is the outbreaks of humanity that we love here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nigel's here. Oh, and Hank knows about the trip of shame to the dumpster, having drunk quite a lot of Portuguese wine, I think, in the last month. Morning, all. Earl Grey tea and another 35 minutes of Carl's morning muses. Helped here by MC McCumskey this morning, though. Dumpster is an F1 wake-up call. Screecher brakes. 10 seconds later, disappears down the road twice a week. Magic. Bi-weekly. Enjoying that. And also, you can probably get a kid to check it out the window as you drive past. I mean, no, I'm not going to recommend that. That's just immature and unhelpful and not somebody in my position should say. Al Mansil, you have one of the best collections of glazed tiles in a little church there. Have you found it, Gareth? Church of San Lorenzo, completely covered in azulejos.
Not yet. We'll go looking.
Another treasure to go on the list there. And that's what I love about Portugal as well. You add something every day, don't you, to what you should be going and enjoying. Maybe I should start an Expats Portugal forum thread about a meetup in the Netherlands. Yes, you should. Absolutely. Lulé is the place we are talking about. That's as far as we've got in the comments, Gareth.
Wow.
Okay. The recycling will be transported in my bicycle basket if the bins aren't close by. You will look a pretty picture with that, and you'll have one of those lovely bikes with a basket on the front, Victoria, looking wonderful, I'm sure, driving around in Portugal. Lulé is lovely. Hey, I recognise that name. Is that Mrs. MC? Hello.
Apparently.
Hello. Good morning to you. Lulé is beautiful, she's saying. Jane Cascoeira, good morning. We are from Benoni Gotang, now in Gafanha do Carmo. Teenage kids in local school doing well with an extra Portuguese lessons at school and private. So I think fellow South Africans, if I identified that correctly, is that right?
Yeah, seems to be. And the local schools. So that's the other side of it. Local schools here are pretty good. Yeah. So if you end up coming to Portugal and putting your kids in one of the local schools, it's still a good place to send the kids to school.
Yeah, and so far the word biltong hasn't come up in the conversation. Now, wherever you go in the world, South Africans seem to like to set up a shop of dried meats, don't they, from back home? Has that been an issue in your house?
Yeah, we've been desperately trying to find a good place to get some biltong. We found one place that sold it, but the jury's still out about the quality.
Yes, but this it comes from a whole range of South African dried meats, doesn't it? What are the other keywords we should be looking out for?
Really just biltong. I mean, biltong is made of so many different types of meats. It's like, yeah.
Oh, so it's a process rather than a particular kind of meat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. We were talking about horse meat yesterday, but I'm not going to take you down that particular road. Me, my dog, but absolutely, I'm sure there are many. Okay, so there we go. We have validation support for a Dutch Netherlands meetup or thread in the forum there. That's fantastic. Cheers, Matthias, who will start a thread in the forums and see who's interested and then later organize something. Alvor simply fits everything. Would you agree with that?
Alvor, where is Alvor?
Alvor, that's down in your way, I'm sure.
Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing to put on the list there.
Well, it just speaks to the breadth of this place. It takes a very long time to explore. It's a small country, but there's still lots to see.
Yeah, amazing. After 1 week, Ovar, not Alvar, but Ovar took the lead on the list to move to. Okay, so that's on the leaderboard for the Prochnikis there. Interesting. Arti Astronomic. And it's amazing. I love these YouTube channels with these incredible names. I wonder what that's about. What places you don't feel safe in Portugal? The worst neighborhoods in Portugal are those where there are drug dealers, but no one will rob you or attack you. The only problem may be pickpockets. That's from what I've not experienced, but what I've heard, that sounds about right. But you were saying you felt safe everywhere pretty much, right, Gareth, where you've been?
Yeah, there's been pretty much nowhere we've gone to, and that's one thing we remarked on. That's a massive difference. And this isn't just a South African thing. This is a global thing. There are countries all around the world where safety can be an issue, and you just do not have that in Portugal. It's remarkable.
Good to know. The questions about the internet in Coimbra there, we've got multiple conversations going on, but it's so far pretty good. Holding up, Jim White, the internet in Coimbra. Not as fast as Porto, but good enough. Monchique, says Mark, is high up and provides stunning vistas of countryside and the coastline 20 kilometers away. It is beautiful, isn't it, Gareth? Hidden away is also my specialist tea room, where you can drink black, green, white, and red teas. And I could just imagine Mark Rigby, possibly in a Panama hat and a white linen suit, quietly drinking these teas in a hideaway cafe there. And people are sort of pointing at him. Is that the man from Del Monte or something like that over there in the corner? Or is it James Bond? North Algarve, Foral, is that Traviscal area? Lots of fruit farms, stunning area, really friendly. Love my little farm. Close to everything, but you need a car out there. Okay, interesting for those wanting to live without transport. Probably not for you, but stunning by the sound of it. Mike Campion, hello, Mike, and Magging Maastricht, getting our Portugal fix, much needed, but another day closer. Even the kids joined in with the GMP showdown. Hello, kids. Campion kids, fantastic. Garvo, how does Portuguese? Oh, this is it. Question of the morning. How does Portuguese wine compare to South African wine, Gareth? This is the important stuff.
I might insult a few people.
No, it's going to be awkward.
Portuguese wine is pretty good. Yeah,
is that
to be honest? I'm not a big wine drinker. I'm not at all a big wine drinker. You know, if my wife and I drink a couple of bottles a year, that's us really going all out. But Portuguese wine's been very good. I mean, the thing with the Airbnbs is they often leave you a little welcome gift, and that often includes a bottle of Portuguese wine, which you have to drink. I mean, you can't be that rude.
In Portuguese culture, that's just for getting the kids to sleep. But the adults are allowed some as well. I'm kidding, everybody, before anyone gets upset about that. Hola, bon dia. Mrs. C and I drove from Sagres to Lagos, going through every village looking for a villa, says Capricorn 12. Made it a lot easier to identify which villages we liked when looking online. Love Portugal. How do you remember them, though? Capricorn 12 and other people here, do you have these conversations where you say, where was that lovely place with it was a lovely village and it had beautiful houses and a font and beautiful tiles and a church. And that's just about every village you went through, right? And you go, I can't remember what it is. It had a little river beach or something. That you've got to have some way of making a spreadsheet or database or maybe a photographic album of these places. He's done it already. Look at that. He's waiting oddoration, though. You're odd enough. I'm going to odorate you and say that that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Matthias, for doing that. Interesting about family reunification. As my partner and kids are Dutch and I am post-Brexit Brit, that's a condition. He's a PBB. That is the way we'll be approaching it. What a sorry condition that is to be a PBB right now, especially if you're trying to get something in sent. I mean, Mrs. M has had some homeopathic medicines sent from. And I know I stand by for the homeopathy jokes because, of course, some people will say that she could just pick up anything and take it, and it would have the same value. However, we are homeopathically suggestible and disposed in this house. Homeopathic medicines waiting in for customs clearance. That is just one of the many nightmare aspects that we probably weren't thinking so much about, but that's a tricky thing for the PBBs. Connie's sister is now talking about maybe following us to Portugal as well, says Hank. Incredible. This is catching. It's a good virus. If you've got a Schengen residency, there should not be any issues for you, Mike Campion, on the reunification. Airbnb, I think this is for you, Gareth. Do some owners provide a suitable contract to support residency applications if you stay long enough, i.e. 6 months plus? Have you tried that on with any Airbnb owners, Gareth?
We asked, and it's a no, because the contract, you don't sign a residency contract for Airbnb. Yeah. It's done through the app. It's like booking at a hotel. They're not going to do it either. And we had to, and the other thing we were warned about is when you do find a long-term rental, make sure you ask the landlord to produce this document that you need for your residency. Otherwise, some of them don't because, tax and things like that, apparently.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I mean, that can raise your rental bill by 20 odd %. and probably a little bit of an admin fee. The thing with this, Mike, is that the only way an Airbnb person is going to be able to provide you with the proper lease is to switch out of Airbnb and give you a 12-month rental, and it's no longer Airbnb. So, and it's worth asking, because we've done that. That does happen, but they'll have to change their business model. Airbnb on its own is not enough. Gareth, again for you about moving your stuff to Portugal. Waiting for the residency is for non-Schengen people. No, it's not, is it? Because you have to be an official resident of Portugal, even if you've come from somewhere else in the EU. Would you agree?
The difference, and I agree with that, but the difference as well is where you're shipping from. So if you were shipping internally in Europe, you don't need residency, because that's just a truck or something that's within Europe. That's fine.
Yes,
when you're shipping from somewhere like South Africa, the US, Australia, wherever else you might be shipping from, that then becomes an import issue into Europe.
Right. That's right. So when you come across on your motorbike and you've got all dog food in your panniers, you're not going to be asked about that, Matthias. All right. Well, you might be asked about it, but I think you're going to be all right. That would be a perfect way to build a family network. Bring a sister with you. Gareth, we know all about sleeping on blow-up mattresses and camping in an empty house. Oh, when your goods arrive, it's like Christmas. So you've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, well, like I said, luckily we were fortunate enough that the landlord here has other houses with furniture in that he's loaned us until our stuff does arrive. So that's helped a lot, because you don't want to go buy furniture that you know is on the way.
Indeed. Another wonderful outbreak of humanity, Portuguese style there. It followed the 6-month-old rule with my container. When it arrived at my home, it looked like it was never opened or inspected. That's interesting. Yes, and that can happen, of course, but you can't rely on that, I don't think. Thanks, Donna, for that. Which port have you found to ship into Portugal from South Africa? I've only found Santander in Spain, says Pippa Young. So what are you looking at there, Gareth?
Well, this is a case of we try to use international movers to help us with this process. And when they originally came to our house to quote us and all this kind of stuff, they pointed out to us that the largest amount of money you'll be paying for this kind of move is the actual shipment. The process of packing and all of that kind of stuff is actually almost negligible compared to the cost of the actual shipping itself. But I believe they're coming through Cinch, which I found out is called Cinch in Portugal, not Sines, as you might see it on the map as an English speaker. So
that's Sines, everybody. But that beautiful pronunciation there, like Tunch and Cinch. Okay, very good. Peter Bleach, he's so naughty with these sorts of comments. Would love to visit Frank and Rachel, but if they have an antique leather sofa, how we will know we're not sitting on one of the hosts? I think Frank's given that sort of thing up now. Let's have a look. Colin Ross Jones is here this morning as well. The most annoying thing about recycling rubbish is that they collect plastic in an open top vehicle and it ends up back on the side of the road there. Yes, a little bit of a moan there from good morning to you, Colin. Hakan has a good-looking YouTube channel with lots of videos of Turkey. One of the perks of moving to Portugal was easier, closer travel. Turkey is high on my list. Thanks, Carl, for a great show as a resource for many things. Khadija, thank you so much for your feedback there. Yes, a trip to Turkey in the offing there by the sound of it. Our passports says, hey, Circus School Paul is here. Our passports with D7 visas arrived yesterday with the D7 visas inside the passports. Took exactly 3 weeks from start to finish with no problems at all. Portugal, here we come. I hear it's going well on the Brit side, isn't it? The PBBs, although there are the problems with the Brexit thing, the whole D7 thing for Brits looks like it's happening very quickly. So excellent to hear that. How long do you have to have been married before reunification is possible? Is it 6 months like the furniture? Gareth, do you know what the threshold is for that?
I'm afraid I don't. My wife and I have been married for a bunch of years now. So honestly, I'd suggest speaking to a lawyer to find exactly what that period is, but I'm sure there is one.
Well, we know, don't we, that Stephen is finding out if marrying a Portuguese woman the day before he comes and applies is going to work. So that's there's multiple issues going on there, Stephen. Bon dia, Carl, says James from sunny Skipton, North Yorkshire. What you want for the wine bottles is a Ronco glass and bottle cutter. Remember them from the ads in the 70s and 80s. I don't, but that does sound like a very good bit of repurposing, and not only for your Ronco glass and bottle cutter. Imagine the Christmas gifts you can make with that, along with your Buttoneer or whatever it is called, Buttonmatic, and all those things in the back of Portuguese cupboards. Actually, when you buy a Portuguese house, you might actually find a Ronco glass and bottle cutter in the back of a cupboard that's been left over. Dry Wurst. Is that Boerewors? Is another popular dried meat from South Africa, says Monica. It sounds like she's more into it than you are, possibly, there.
We're actually waiting for our biltong making kit coming from South Africa. It's in our container, and it's on its way, we hope, soon. Yeah, dry wors, it's just basically sausage that's been dried like biltong, and delicious.
Carl's talking about butterwurst and dry wurst. Yes, I think I am. Even in the UK where I'm from, I used to drive past on the way to work a South African shop that was selling such things. And I just thought to myself, that sounds so interesting. And here we're hearing about the McCumskey's sideline, I think. Possibly the Algarve biltong shop in a unit near you very soon, as soon as their container comes over. Pete, sounds amazing. Your place must be absolutely magical. I'm sure you're going to see it soon at some point, Victoria. Cindy Vine is making her own biltong. Someone already doing it. Personally, I can sometimes take it or leave it, either delicious or like an aged shoe sole. That's quite a review, Pete. Victoria, you'll have to see it for yourself. Portugal is super safe, he continues. We hotwired a truck yesterday in Fonta Pipa's version of Grand Theft Auto Portugal, and no one batted an eyelid. Portuguese people are so friendly. They probably came over to help, didn't they? And then you drove off in your hotwired truck to find a bag of oranges in the back seat. That's how we roll here. Capricorn 12, please share more about the tea room. That's Mark. What is the tea room where you go drinking tea in your white linen suit? 5 years of looking. Oh, here we go. This is Alvor. Middle Algarve, close to everything. My place is 10 minutes from the F1 track, worth a look. So there you go, another one to add to your list there, Alvor. And that comes after a 5-year search from a very canny Yorkshireman. So you know that's going to be good. Happy birthday to Dale from Pete. We wandered to a pretty sketchy area in Porto, but no one bothered us. Yep. Absolutely, in the big city, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Yes, and you won't generally be bothered. Go on, Gareth.
That's you may not have gone to a sketchy area. It may have just been old. That's one thing we've realized, because coming from a country like South Africa, where the country is like a couple of 100 years old. Yes. So the oldest buildings are in the Cape, whereas Portugal is maybe a couple of 1,000 years old. You know, things are old. Just something to get used to.
Yeah, worth mentioning. Okay, well, I know we're past 10 o'clock now. Let's see if we can resolve the show now. Thanks for the advice, Airbnb. Have a great day, guys. This is where some people start to tail off, and understandably so. The memory issue is really easy, based on the fact that no two villages are the same. That's what's beautiful about Portugal. True, our villa chooses us, or our villa chose us, which makes things a lot easier. Plus the 20 local beaches. Oh, sounds great. Antonio F is here. Morning, Antonio. Capricorn 12. Where is your location? He's not going to tell you that, is he? Oh, I don't think. Well, let's find out. Capricorn 12, are you going to tell us? Do you want some new neighbors? Joined in late, but we'll listen to the video later, says Mashinini. Can't wait to hear about Gareth's journey and process from South Africa. I've just started mine with Gilda. Nice one, Mash. Fantastic. Probably that's a name that could be in your rap crew. MC McCumskey and Mashinini, live and direct in the Algarve. That just about does it with the comments, which is great. I believe I've been sent a messenger picture of Luke's birthday yesterday. Let's see if we can do that. Tomorrow, of course, we have Friday the 13th, how it's done in Porto Alegre, I believe, with the wonderful Philomena. It's Philomena Friday tomorrow. Am I allowed to share this picture, please, Pete? Let me know, because there are a lot of people in there who might not thank you or me for doing that. So just give me a thumbs up. I can't believe anyone, Mrs. M coming to my rescue here, would take their time to try and publicly shame you simply because they don't like your presentation style. What a waste of energy. Oh, isn't she lovely? I'm here, joined in a bit late, but we'll look at video. Nice one, Gemini. It's been a great morning with Gareth McCumskey here this morning, who's come with family from South Africa to make a home in the Algarve, and I think loving it there. Gareth, thank you so much. What have we missed? What have you been meaning to say all this time whilst I've been interrupting you with comments?
It's really anybody coming to Portugal from South Africa. The thing about age is one thing that we had to get used to, and that takes a bit of time. And just realizing that the place you're coming to is different and a lot older than South Africa is, with a much deeper and vaster history. And just come with open eyes. I mean, the place is beautiful. We've been loving our time here, even with the bumps in the road and the waiting for things to happen and things like that. Some of the old school things that still occur here that we're not used to from South Africa, where you can pretty much do anything digitally in South Africa, funnily enough. Signing our rental contract, we had to do that in the presence of the agent, in triplicate, on paper. That was the way it is. You can't do this by email, anything like that. Leasing our cars, same thing. We had to go into the bank and sign documents. Yeah. You know, things are different, but it's a fantastic place to live and bring up children. That's what we're really excited about.
And obviously, you know, isn't it nice to use a quill after so many years?
Quill and inkwell, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't ask you about leasing your car. I think we need to get you back for that. Because that is we have tonight, actually, we have the All About Motoring special webinar this evening. But leasing a car, that makes your information on that gold dust as well. You have been so giving, so helpful, and such an asset to us this morning, Gareth, if I may refer to you as that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Muito obrigado. Come back soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm hoping somebody finds the information useful. Thanks, Carl.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. And we can't let you go without a few more comments. Have a great day, everyone, from Andy. Always love the show. So supportive and accepting of all comers, says Michelle in Australia there. Good morning to you. That picture of that dinosaur you sent me that was roaming in the current day in Australia, was it cassowary? What amazing creature. And we will pop that up on the screen sometime soon. But we've been busy with Gareth this morning. Have a great day from Andrea. In actual fact, the slower the pace of life is a gift. It gives you the chance to really appreciate life. Absolutely. And it sounds like Gareth is becoming utterly Portuguese in that respect, with the change of pace and the age of the culture difference there. Thank you, says Pippa. Thank you so much, says Anna. And Dale, birthday boy himself. Bigfoot is here. Parabéns, je vous say to you, Dale. Great show. Thanks, Gareth. That's a happy show. Thank you very much, Paul. And all the best, Gareth, finally. A great day to all. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to leave it right there. Thanks again, Gareth. Take care, mate. Hope to have a beer with you one day, either in the Silver Coast or in the Algarve there.